All right, happy Halloween for today's spooky video. I guess we're finally going to be finishing off our look at the Transformers Hasbro Pulse Con exclusive 2024 set, the Dinoforce. So we took a look at each of these guys individually, and now for today's video, we're just going to show off how to do the combined mode, which I guess is kind of scary. I don't know. It feels like a vaguely Halloweeny thing because their original toys were like repaints of Monstructor, who's definitely a bit more spooky. But I mean, really, Dinoking's not so spooky. That's just where this review happened to land. But ooh, spooky, sure. But yeah, we can just get on into it. We're gonna start off with Goryu here, who creates the left leg. Even though he's the leader, he doesn't actually turn into the chest, which is also why they did that for Volcanicus, so that the T-Rex became the leg rather than how it was done with Volcanicus before, where Grimlock made the body. They did it so he made the leg, which is fine. You start off by taking off his tailpiece, and it's just going to flip around and plug onto his lower legs there, just like that. Then you want to take the arms, rotate them as if you're going into the robot mode, and then use this joint to rotate them together and actually tab them in together just like that. And then take this whole section and it will lock into the waist piece there. Then you want to split this and then bring this whole section down like that. Now this is a weird sort of transformation because on this side you just leave this down like this, but on this side what you're supposed to do, because if you left it like this on both sides, basically this would bump into his other knee a little bit. So to accommodate for that, they have you actually rotate this bit around and kind of tab it in like that, so it's like asymmetrical, and I think that looks pretty stupid, honestly. Like personally, I just prefer to leave both of them down, but like this. But I mean, you could put both of them up if you want and like actually tab this back together, but I think that looks kind of dumb too. So I don't know. I think it looks best with both of them down, but I'm just going to leave it like this for the sake of the video. And then you take his left foot here, and this little like eye-shaped tab there will go into that eye-shaped slot, just tab in like that, and there we have his left leg all done. And then for oh my gosh, words. Right leg, we'll take Doryu here. Basically, you want to just take this entire piece off. It tabs in here and tabs in there. Looks like it already has combiner port out. It wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be hidden back, but whatever. And then you basically want to like half transform the legs, where you bring it to this point so you can separate it and put in the legs here, and then you tab it back together, and then legs put in the head there, and then you fold this back up. It doesn't fold up as much as it did before, but now these tabs will go into these slots where this piece was originally tabbed into, just like that. Then you want to take the robot mode arms, untab them from the side there and straighten them out, and then rotate them forward on this joint here. So just like with Goryu's arms there, they will tab together, and then these two bits will slot into that section there. You want to give it a good push so it slots into place, and then you take this piece, and then these two pegs that were on his arms will go into these two holes right here, just like that. And then you can take the right foot, and again, it's a similar connection there. We'll just tab in the same way as it did. I don't know if they're exactly the same, just mirrored, but they feel like they fit the contours of these bits. So I think they are slightly different, at least that outer shell section. But yeah, there is his right leg. And then we want to take, for the body here, we're going to take these two guys. For, what's his name? Ryu here. We are going to basically transform him into robot mode. So you want to split these, rotate them down to the side, split this, rotate the whole thing around, flip this to the back to bring him to his robot mode. Then you want to take his arms, fold them up like this, and then take the legs and actually rotate them around at this joint here like this, and then rotate up the tail bit so that this tab here will go into this slot right there. I guess this is that's the tab, that's the slot, whatever. But that's basically how you want him. And then you want to take the tail piece from Kakuryu, and take out the combined mode head, take this bit, plug it onto Ryu's chest here. I'm going to keep messing up their names, and that's basically how you want him. And then you take Kakuryu, and then what do? You leave the head like that. I guess you pretty much just leave the whole thing like this. You want to open up the back section here as if you're going to robot mode. Take the legs, and they actually will just rotate up like this and then tab into the side of the body. And then the back legs we just leave out like that for now. And then this peg here on the bottom of his chin will go in there. And then these two pegs will go into these two holes right there. So you want to widen Ryoryu's arms a little bit. And then his head will kind of go into that cavity there. So you just want to line all that up, peg it into place, and then take the arms here, which have holes that will peg onto the side of Kokuryu's legs, in theory. Oh, you have to, get these bits out of the way. And then also in theory, the little pegs in there will go into Ryoryu's hands. So it's a very, if you actually get it all connected together, it's pretty solid connection. And then what I usually do is just take his legs and just kind of fold them to the back a little bit more, just like that. And then you can take the Dinoking head and just plug it into place there on the top. Then this peg, this hole here will correspond with this peg on whatever his name is, Goryu, and this will correspond to the same peg on Doryu, just like that. Then we want to take Gairu here, take off his tail. Basically, we're mostly going to robot mode. You're just going to flip this section around and flip these legs around like you're going to robot mode. You kind of have to untab these for just a sec so that you can rotate this 90 degrees and then plug it back in, because then it kind of locks this in between it. Fold up the feet fold around this way and kind of tab into the hands there loosely. And then you fold out the combiner port like that, and then take his tail weapon and it'll peg onto his legs here, both keeping them in place and then also finishing out the arm there. And unfortunately, because of the way he's sculpted, this always sits at this outward angle like this, so you do plug this into the shoulder, but he can't have his arm any less bent than that, specifically on this side, which is a little bit annoying. But it actually matters a little bit less than you'd expect it to when all is said and done, but still is a little bit annoying in my opinion. And then lastly, we'll take whatever his name is supposed to be. What is his name? Yokuryu. And we will open up the legs just like that. We will untab the arms and then rotate the waist so that this section is facing forward. I believe you're supposed to rotate the arms like this and then tab them back in, but I just leave them this way so that, the backs of the hands are facing forward. And then you take the wings, fold them in, and then fold them in like this. I think you're supposed to have them out flat. I usually rotate them so that they're sticking out this way, but they always kind of bump into the hips no matter what. And then you get his little combiner port out here, just sometimes easier said than done. And then take his arm chunk piece and it will tab onto his arm or his legs rather, to complete that. And then when you're pegging this in, you have to kind of get a finger under here so it doesn't just compress that joint back in. And there we have Dinoking fully combined. And then lastly, we'll take all the weapons here. The gun is pretty simple. It's just the two pieces that came with Kokuryu. Is Kokuryu? Yeah. I always mess up their names. And that's pretty much the combined mode weapon. And then for the full big scythe weapon, basically you take this section here, plug it into the inside of the scythe, then take the axe, flip it around like this, and plug it in like that. Take the sword, which is the same sculpt that came with, Snarl originally, funnily enough, peg that into the top here, and then take Goryu's mace weapon and peg it into the bottom, and that makes his big sort of axe. Now, the real unfortunate thing about the axe is this piece just doesn't peg in, really at all. It just does not fit whatsoever, which is kind of a bummer. I don't know how they got the tolerances for that so wrong. Luckily, when you have it in there, gravity is working in its favor, but B, if you just fold this up a little bit, that helps kind of lock it into place. But really, I'm so bummed up with how bad that connection is. That's pretty baffling to me. But you can have him hold it in his hand, and it's such a tight fit in his hand, honestly, that I usually will take this piece off and actively try to attach it in and then attach this back, just because that's a lot easier. And there we have Dinoking in his full combined mode. And he looks pretty good, all things considered. He's definitely a lot more chunky than, the Dinoking from Victory originally was, but I think he gets the point across. And definitely now you can see why it made more sense to make these guys the colors of the inner robots, because then it actually made the combined mode, look proper, basically. But there's some things you can do to kind of tidy up the look. If you wanted to, you could take Yokuryu's hands and fold them up like that. If you prefer that, that gives him a little bit more elbow range here. Personally, I prefer to like take this section and just put it like that, because his legs are usually far enough apart anyway that like it doesn't really bump into it all that much, and I just think that that looks a lot better. In terms of storage for this stuff, you could take the gun and like peg it into like Yokuryu's hands here. Is that his name? Yes. I keep having to look at their names and store it like that. There's really not a whole lot you can do with the axe. I mean, I guess notionally, if it, you know, stayed together properly, really tight to get out of the hands, you could at least take this section and tab it into the back here, and then he could have the axe kind of slung over his back there. But because this piece is like, you know, working against you in terms of gravity, like that doesn't work super well, but it can stay if you have it kind of, you know, if you have the tolerances of this bit kind of right there. And yeah, no, I think that works out fine enough. Now you can, because this is like a separatable piece, you can have him hold like this instead if you want him to have like a shorter axe, or if you push it enough of the way through, you could have him like hold it further up on the axe handle. There's really no good way to like get him like holding this in two hands. The axe is just not long enough for that, which is kind of a shame, because like in the show, it really was this like enormous like staff weapon with the axe head at the end of it, which is why what I tend to do personally is really unnecessarily tight connection this, which is a shame, because then there's like things like that where it's not nearly tight enough. But what I tend to do is actually take one of the, and this is why I showed this off in Yokuryu's video, take one of the little like extra like fold out guns that comes with Soundwave and plug that into the bottom, because you can, if you push this down far enough, peg that in to make the staff a lot longer. Like, yeah, it's a different color, but you know, I think that still looks better overall and just gives him a much longer axe to hold, and feels like he's actually properly holding it in the middle, but then having like plenty of, you know, space on this side. So personally, that's what I do, and if that works for me. But you know, that is using an extra accessory that doesn't come with the figure originally. But yeah, in terms of articulation, the head, because it just pegs in, is on a swivel there. Both of the shoulders are just pegged in so they can rotate out like that, and then use their joints to rotate out to the side. Like I said, with Gairu here, he can't fold in any more than that, which is kind of a bummer. They sort of don't have functional bicep swivels, because like for Gairu, the like hips are sort of like locked into place between the arms here, which bumps around. And same thing with Yokuryu, just with the wings. They do have elbow joints, which are just like the knees of the original figures, which work well enough. He does have a waist joint just from using Ryuryu's waist joint. Hips are on ball joints, which can go forward and back and out to the side. It's fallen to bits here. He also has this little waist piece, which I guess you could flip up if you wanted to. I don't know which way it's really supposed to be. It kind of works as a little like waist piece, but yeah, I don't know. And then just putting them back together here. So he's got the thigh swivel there. Each of the leg guys have that joint at the knee so they can bend in, and then you can also use that as a thigh swivel if you want. And then the ankles are on a sort of like soft ratcheted ankle tilt here that go about that far, but they also kind of fall off sort of easily, so it's not like the best thing in the world, but you know, it's better than nothing, because it is stable once you kind of have it sitting there on the ground. It's just when you're, you know, using the ankle joints, it has a tendency to kind of just pull the feet straight off. Oh, and then the wrists also can rotate and then bend up here, which is nice for accommodating him holding the longer axe, that he can, you know, actually fold his fist up to do that. So yeah, you know, decent-ish articulation. Really the only annoying thing is that this one arm can't really go in any more than that. Also just that he falls apart sometimes, as combiners tend to do. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom's Sideswipe. So you can see he's not hugely enormous or anything like that. He's a core class combiner, so he tends to be pretty small. And here he is with an average Voyager class with Optimus Prime. So you can see that's pretty much where he ends up height-wise, is just like an average Voyager height there, which doesn't really scale with a lot of the things that he's sort of meant to go along with, but you know, it's okay. For example, just because I showed him off with all of them, here he is with an average core class figure with Vertebrae again, just because I showed off all the individuals with her before, just so you can see how much bigger he gets than like the core class. Here he is with, let's do Power of the Primes Volcanicus, so you can see how he scales with the other sort of like Dinobot combiner. Then for another more recent combiner, here he is with Menasor from Legacy. So you can see obviously quite a bit smaller there. Here he is with Star Saber. So you can see, really, I mean, like in the show, they were pretty much the same height. Like he was the size of a combiner. So, you know, it's not perfect, but we're getting some version of Dinoking, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, that's what they look like together. And then lastly, we'll just move him to the side and bring on again Big Boss Deathsaurus here, so you can see how the two of them look. And yeah, I think that Deathsaurus definitely was bigger than Dinoking in the show, just obviously not that much bigger, but you know, still it's cool to see the two of them together. And that's personally where I'm going to be putting him on the shelf, is on the same shelf as Deathsaurus. I think they look real cool together, even if the scale is not totally accurate to how it was in Victory. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to Dinoking. It's a fun set. I do like the overall combined mode. Problems aside, like, you know, it does have a tendency for pieces to kind of fall off just because you're working with a bunch of core classes and, like, you know, peg and slot tolerances and all stuff like that. Like, it doesn't need to be quite as secure as like a, you know, combiner using deluxe limbs and stuff like that, but still a little bit annoying. I do wish the axe was longer, but I'm pretty pleased with that solution there of adding sound waves, like extra gun there. And this is like, I think maybe the one that came with Sound Blaster. I don't know if there's anyone that's like darker than this. I'm pretty sure that they're all like varying shades of gray, aside from the Shattered Glass one, which is just white. So, you know, it's the closest one I've got, but it is kind of a shame it's not exactly the same color, but at least it kind of matches the color of the axe head up here. But yeah, other than that, you know, I think he's a fun combiner. It's definitely cool to finally get another version of Dinoking, but it would have been nice to have gotten like these guys as like deluxes or something like that. But you know, maybe that's a bit too much to ask for this time and place. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to them. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Hasbro Pulse Con Exclusive Dinoking, and happy Halloween.